Welcome to MMAfighting.com's Strikeforce Diaz versus Daley preview show alongside Ben Folks and a very special guest, the #1 contender for the UFC welterweight title, Jake Shields. We are inside the Crown Plaza, San Diego, California, where just moments ago, Paul Daley and Nick Diaz just faced off and weighed in, both made weight, and it was quite intense, Jake. Obviously, a lot of people were expecting that. What did you think of the stare down?
It was definitely intense. That's why I ran out just in case. I figured it was possible they would get into it. Of course, I didn't want to get involved in the altercation, but I knew Nick was weighing in, and I know how Paul Daley is, so I ran out there. And sure enough, you see Daley mouthing off, and of course Nick's gonna get back into it too, knowing Nick. And they look pretty intense. I think it's gonna be a hell of a fight tomorrow night.
And Ben, of course, a lot of people were interested whether or not Paul Daley would make weight. He did make weight, needed the towel, but he looked good, right?
Knew he needed a towel right away too, yeah. But he came in I think 0.2 of a pound under, so it wasn't too bad. And at least maybe that'll silence some of the people who are constantly on him about his weight.
Yeah, Jake, we'll keep you around for the main event and the co-main event. First, let's talk about the main event. You've obviously trained with Gilbert Melendez and Nick Diaz, and we saw some pictures recently that Chael Sonnen was in town. I know he was helping you, but how did he help you guys? And did he help anything with Nick? Anything? Because we know that Paul Daley, his weakness is his wrestling.
Yeah, he worked with the whole camp a little bit, but he mostly was just working with him. I brought him down, mostly to help me, but of course he helped the whole camp, and it was basically brought him down because he's a phenomenal wrestler, and I'm fighting GSP, who's known for his great takedowns. So
Ben and I were talking about this off camera. This is almost, it's hard to predict this fight because we don't know what Nick is going to do. Obviously, everyone knows about Paul Daley's weakness, but Nick sometimes likes to fight fire with fire, and he wants to prove that he can beat you at his own game. Can you give us some insight as to what he will do tomorrow?
I'm really good friends with Nick, and he's still unpredictable. He's one of those unpredictable people I know. Even being one of his closest friends, it's like you never really know what he's going to do. He's, sometimes you can try to get in his head and try to be, Nick, this is how you should fight, but honestly, Nick likes to fight the way he wants to fight, so he's prepared for everything. His stand-up's feeling good. His jiu-jitsu is obviously on another level. I fought Paul Daley myself, and I've been on the ground with him. I know Nick Diaz can smoke him on the ground, but will Nick try to take him there? I don't know.
Ben, what do you think he's going to do? Do you think he'll try to fight fire with fire?
And I was really hoping Jake would have some of that, because I could see it going either way. I mean, obviously, like you said, I think if he can get it to the ground if he wants it, and while there, he has a huge advantage over Paul Daley. But then it seems as if at times like he has like a kind of mental thing where he doesn't want to admit that this guy might be a good enough striker that he needs to take the guy down. That, hey, he's a good striker, but I'm a good striker too. I can stand here and I'll prove it, and that's a dangerous game to play. I mean, we've seen that with Paul Daley before when Martin Kampmann tried to, stand there with him a little bit longer than he should have. You can get in trouble that way, and especially if you're prone to cuts. Even if you don't get knocked out, you can get stopped by cuts. Daley seems to be almost counting on that. I'm really interested to see what he'll do. I mean, the smart thing to do would be to take Paul Daley down, but Nick sometimes likes to prove a point rather than just take the path of least resistance.
And Jake, as you mentioned, you have a win over Paul Daley. What did you tell Nick about him and fighting him and the things to expect when you're in the cage with him?
He's just a dirty fighter. That's already kind of known. But when I was shooting on him, he tried to put his fingers in my eyes and mouth and stuff. And other than that, he's a great striker without really good jiu-jitsu, and I don't think he's really changed too much since I fought him. I think he's pretty much stayed the same. He tends to keep working on his strengths opposed to his weaknesses. So I think if Nick decides to take him down, he can make it an easy fight. If they stand and bang, it can be a hell of a war, which could be good for the fans, but not necessarily the smartest approach for Nick. But Nick likes to make his own decisions, so we'll see what he does tomorrow night.
How do you expect the fight to play out?
I think Nick's going to stand and trade with him for a couple rounds and then wear him down and end up submitting him or knocking him out later on.
How about you, Ben? What do you expect to see?
I think if it goes out of the first round, then I think that Nick will eventually overwhelm him. I mean, Nick is a slow starter. You see that in some of the fights where he starts out a little slow. He takes a little more damage than you think he's going to early on, but he just keeps coming at you. He never takes a step backwards. He never even pauses and to let you breathe, and he's just all over these guys, and eventually it wears him down. But I think Paul Daley's best chance is to catch him with a hard shot early on and look for a flash knockout, or to cut him up really bad, put those elbows to work and cut him and get a cut stoppage. If it goes out of the first round, I think Nick wins it.
And Jake, in the co-main event, your good friend Gilbert Melendez defending his title against Tatsuya Kawajiri. I'm a little surprised that he needed the towel. How was his weight cut?
I think he was a little bit under, but he just he pushed it close, and they have a rule in California, like once you step on, you're not allowed to take your shorts off, which to me seems like a weird rule, but like say if you get on, you're a little bit over, they're not going to let you take the shorts off, so it's smarter just to go on there naked.
What's the key to defeating Kawajiri in your opinion?
They fought before, and it was a very close fight. Kawajiri's tough, and I think the key to beat him is just what Gil does. Put a lot of pressure on him, maybe put him on his back. You don't want Kawajiri taking you down. He's a very strong wrestler, and either pick him apart on his feet or put him on his back and put pressure. And Gil's looking just phenomenal right now. I think he's going to pick him apart.
All right, we'll let you go, Jake, but final words about your fight. It's just 3 weeks away, 55,000 strong at the Rogers Center. You ready for this one?
Yeah, I'm ready. I basically, I trained with Nick and Gil, so I feel like I just peaked out for a fight myself right now. So I'm ready to go. It's just that final little push. So I'm ready. 3 more weeks. I'm excited.
And nice job wearing the Maple Leafs jersey, by the way. I saw that picture. Get some cheap heat. Very well done.
Exactly.
Right,
Got some cheap shots in somehow.
Good luck to your team, and good luck on April 30th. Jake Shields, the #1 contender for the UFC welterweight title. Okay, now back to you, Ben. And it's kind of hard to go from the welterweight contender to Ben Fowlkes. I mean, this is kind of a letdown here, but let's.
I don't know if we really needed you to point that out. I think, but no, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's a fun cheap shot. Everybody loves those.
What did you
That's
think
what
of
I
it?
tell people. You know how Jake says, "What do you tell people about Paul Daley as a dirty fighter?" That's what I tell people about Ariel Helwani. He's a dirty interviewer or an instigator, as some would say.
Sounds familiar.
I'm not saying that. Just where I'm from, we wouldn't slap you. No, we would talk really mean about you once you left the room, though.
So what about Gilbert Melendez and Kawajiri? Obviously they fought before, and we want to know if it's going to play out the same way. There are some people who actually believe that Kawajiri won that fight. Do you expect this to go sort of along the same lines? The tough grind-out fight. This one will go 5 rounds, but a decision kind of win for either guy?
I do expect it to go the distance, but I don't think it'll be that close. I think Gilbert Melendez is a much more well-rounded fighter, and he's a smarter fighter now than he was then. He kind of had a tough first mentality. Now he's a little more savvy and a little more experienced. I think that's going to show. I also think that Kawajiri's inexperience in the cage, in an American promotion, is going to show. I mean, I know that he said he didn't really train in the cage. It's hard to tell how accurate that is if he didn't train at all. And you and I saw him, with his coach after the open workouts, kind of just getting used to the environment of the cage and kind of practicing getting the feel. But it's really different. It's not the kind of thing where you can just show up there on Wednesday of fight week, mess around in the cage, hit mitts a little bit, and you're fine. You got it. It takes a little bit more of an adjustment. You see how many guys have a really hard time adjusting to it even after several fights. So I think that's going to be more of a factor than he thinks it is.
Important to note, I asked him this question, why didn't you train inside a cage? And he said simply he couldn't find one.
Yeah.
It's not that he didn't want to train inside a cage, he just couldn't find one. It seems to me like these guys, especially now with the current state of Japanese MMA, if they want to start improving and doing well here in the States, they need to build a cage, right?
Yeah. Step 1, get a cage. Acquire a cage somehow. Yeah, no, but I can see how that might be very well the cause of it, that he just couldn't find anyone who had a cage that he could go and train in. A lot of guys, like, you go into some gyms and there are a few that don't even have a cage, and they say they don't need it, but that experience of actually fighting in a cage, using the cage to your advantage, to using it to get up, using it to work on a guy when you have him pinned there. I mean, those are the kind of things that you need practice at. You can't, you're not just going to get it by watching video. You hear guys say it over and over again, and I think it's true. I mean, and I think it's going to show.
I didn't have to ask Jake this question because I know who he's going to pick, but what about you? Are you picking Semtex, and are you picking Kawajiri just to go against Jake?
I don't know why you want me to go against Jake so badly.
Want some friction. I'm an instigator.
You are an instigator, man. I didn't believe it. But once again, Nick Diaz proves to be right about everything. No, I'm picking Melendez. I think it'll go a decision, but I'm going to pick Melendez. The Diaz Daley one, honestly, I don't know. I'm
sit on the fence.
I'm not prepared. I have my fighter versus writer thing coming out, and I'm still going back and forth. I'm gonna pick Nick Diaz. There it is.
Keith Jardine versus Gegard Mousasi is so fascinating because, when we last saw Gegard Mousasi in Strikeforce, very bad showing against King Mo. He was exposed, had no takedown defense, didn't look good on the ground. And Jardine, he's a guy who, he's 2-5 in his last 7. He's won his last 2 in a row, but really, the guys who he defeated were nowhere near the level of Gegard Mousasi. If you're in Jardine's camp right now, what are you telling him? How to beat Gegard Mousasi? What are the things? I mean, he's not going to try to take him down like King Mo did. So how do you actually try to beat this guy?
I mean, if I'm in Jardine's camp, I tell him start fast and go after him hard. Jardine doesn't have the cardio right now to go 3 rounds after that. I mean, he seems to know that. He took this fight on 9 days' notice. He fought a month ago. He had a little vacation after that and starting to drop to 185. I mean, it's really hard. He said that there's not a lot of training you can get in when you take a fight on 9 days. It's not like you can put yourself through like the conditioning ringer and really get in that kind of shape. I think he says, I'm not worried about getting tired, which to me is what you say when you are worried about getting tired. I think he's got to start fast. He's got to go after him hard. If he hangs back and tries to win this one down the stretch, I think then Mousasi, who has been training for Mike Kyle for like 4 months, is going to have a huge advantage over him. And Mousasi's just a little quicker. Jardine needs to get in his face, make it ugly, try and use some of that power on him. He doesn't want to see the late second, early third round with Mousasi.
Are you giving Jardine a shot?
I give him a shot because Jardine is such a tough guy, and he has power. You can't not give that guy a shot. At the same time, it's not a really good chance.
So you're picking Mousasi?
I'm definitely picking Mousasi, yeah.
All All right, and finally, Shinya Aoki against Lyle Fancy Pants Beerbohm. Lyle was pleasing the crowd very much, throwing out all those fancy pants prior to weighing in. It's an interesting one.
Where are your fancy pants? I heard you got some fancy pants, and then I expected you to wear them. I haven't seen you in the fancy pants once.
That is for private time only.
One of these days, I'm gonna accidentally walk into your hotel room, and you're gonna be standing there in fancy.
Only fancy pants.
Wow, there's an image that you will not be able to get out of your heads, people.
All right, well, let's talk about the fight. Obviously, last time we saw Aoki here in Strikeforce, a very bad performance as well. Do you think he learned anything about that loss? Do you think he will adjust, or maybe was it just that Gilbert Melendez is that much better than him?
Well, Gilbert Melendez is really, really good, so that's obviously part of it. But when I asked him, what did you learn, and going through the translator, there's always a chance for some nuance to be lost there. But when I asked him, what did you learn from that performance, what he said is, I learned to get here 2 days earlier to deal with the jet lag, which really wasn't what I was expecting. With Aoki, it's hard to tell, is he just messing with me? Is he just kind of being a jerk to me? Or is that really what he says? Because you would think he should have learned a lot of other lessons from that. And then if he didn't, then he might be in trouble. I don't know. I think this being a 3-round fight benefits Beerbohm more than it does Aoki. I think the longer you go there and play around with Aoki on the ground, the greater the chance that something bad is going to happen to you. But I think Beerbohm, his plan seems to be that he would rather go for the takedown and end up on the ground on top of Aoki than he would hang out for too long and let Aoki have a chance at taking him down. That's a dangerous strategy because if you are willingly going to the ground with Aoki, who knows what can happen. But I think Beerbohm has a pretty good chance here.
How do you actually expect it to play out?
I think Beerbohm is going to look to kind of exploit the stand-up early on and really work the clinch game, especially in the first round, until he kind of gets the feel of Aoki. And I think the clinch, up against the fence is where Beerbohm have a real advantage. I don't know if it'll be the most thrilling fight if he pursues that path the entire time. But I think Beerbohm can hang in there, beat him up, stay out of trouble, and win a decision. I think Aoki's style is just not terribly prone to giving him a judge's decision if it goes the distance.
And finally, we have to bring this up. This is a historic event because it is the first major Strikeforce event under the Zuffa ownership. And, it's been interesting observing the differences between the old Strikeforce and the new Strikeforce. And I think a lot of fans are interested in this stuff, not just us, the media. Talk about what you've been seeing, and do you think these changes are for the good, for the worse? Is it kind of too early to tell right now? Is it status quo, business as usual, to steal a phrase? What's your take on it?
It is very interesting, as you say, to watch it. It's like watching a merger. It'd be like if Burger King bought out Wendy's or something, but then when you went in to get your food, there were still employees from both kind of milling around and learning each other's system. It's really it's fascinating as a media member to get to be here and watch this kind of snapshot in time. This is not going to last very long one way or another. I think the changes so far that we've seen, from at least for us, from the media, are for the good. I mean, the UFC knows how to do this fight promotion stuff, knows how to do fight week, and they do it in their sleep at this point. It's so organized. It's just a well-oiled machine, and workouts are on this day, press conference on this day, and everything goes exactly according to plan. Strikeforce, was never terribly great at organization. They had a much smaller staff and just never really got that part of it. So for us, yeah, it's great. Just coordinating where we need to be to get what is a lot easier. I really enjoy that organization aspect of it. I think the potential negatives will be the stuff that the fighters have to deal with down the road when when it comes to contract negotiation time, or when it comes time for some guys to get cut and where do they go, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's going to take a long time to play out. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but that's going to be the biggest potential negative I see.
All right, so it goes down tomorrow night, Saturday night, 10 p.m. Eastern and Pacific, live on Showtime. We've got 4 big fights, and you could say, these aren't just great fights. You'll get a chance to really see history in the making. Will the broadcast look different? What can we expect? Will Dana White make an appearance? Who knows? I mean, there's so many different possibilities that can play out tomorrow night. But most importantly, 4 great fights highlighted by the welterweight title fight between Paul Semtex Daley and Nick Diaz. It's going to be a great night of fights, and we'll have tons of coverage for you pre, post-fight, during the fights, live blogs, videos, all that good stuff right here on MMAfighting.com. For Ben Folks, I'm Ariel Helwani saying see ya from San Diego.